Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
Well, this is an international time. One of our great authors sitting here in the studio, her name is Janet S. Kleinman. She wrote a book called Goodbye, Russia, Hello, America. And I was so thrilled to get into this book because I think it's a book that a lot of people who come from immigrant families can enjoy and feel akin to. So welcome to our show, Janet.
My pleasure.
You know, I said when you first came in that a lot of people have these stories, and they have it in pictures, they have it in, with their relatives, but it never gets out for anyone really to appreciate. What made you decide, because it was a lot of work to do this?
I wanted an identity for my family, and it was an identity that a lot of families need. And in order to do that, if you don't have something that's going to last, you have nothing. A book will last. A record will last. So I decided that I was going to start this book going back to when my parents came to America. And they came in 1923, not together. They came as individual adults, and the life began for the side of family.
And did you have a lot of people who, when you said you were going to write this book, look at you as to, well, how are you going to do that? Because you haven't written anything before. Is this your first book?
No, it's my second book.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Second book. The first book was Flirting with Disaster.
Yes, I did remember that you did. Of course, I hadn't read that, so
well,
I had forgotten.
That.
Okay, you have to send that to
me.
I'll
send you a copy.
So have you taken writers' workshops, or how did you learn how to do this?
First of all, I wrote like everybody else. I wrote in high school, I wrote in college, and I wrote for a living, but I did commercial writing. I did mostly collateral materials for people like Smith, Klein and French and Big Pen and other large companies, and that's different kind of writing. And I didn't know that. I mean, I didn't know it was just so different. And then we retired and came to Florida, and I like to play bridge twice a week. That's it. And the thing that I thought I knew was how to write, and I decided to start writing, and joined a writers group. So that's how this began. I did the book. First book was about a romance during the Haitian earthquake. It's a very, very exciting book. You can ask one. Anyway, and then I said, what am I going to write about next? And I said, I'm going to write about my family. Not as my family disguised, but I'm going to do it as a novel, because Mark Twain said that if you write it exactly like it is, it's boring. So you have to exaggerate.
Okay, well, of course, I, as the a reviewer, didn't know what was exaggerated and wasn't,
yes,
but I knew that you were really in there. So tell me what you feel was the tearjerker. There were a lot of tearjerkers in your book where I wanted to really cry, and some were funny.
Yeah, there were. Well, the funny part, I love the. Can I do the funny part first?
Yeah, do the funny part.
Okay. I love the fact when they go shopping for the wedding gowns. I think that was great. And the matriarch of the family, he says they're not going to spend regular price. They're going to get secondhand wedding gowns. And they go to this lady, and she says to her, don't show them the yellow ones. They're too old. She says, I want the nicest ones you have for the girls. Eventually, they do, and she bargains the price down. She says, you're getting 2 for 1. She said, and you know what? That would have been a picture of my grandma.
And so did you, a lot of people today don't even know their grandparents, but you had that
I had one
pleasure.
grandmother. I had one grandmother who came to America with 2 sons and already had 2 sons here. They brought them. So that, too, is very common for other immigrant families. They come one at a time. My 2 uncles didn't want to go fight in the Russian army, and they, at 19 and 17, came here alone, and then they brought my grandma and the two brothers.
Well, the interesting thing about your book, of course, is that people always want to find their family, even though, they, as you said, they traveled separately, but they always want to go back and try to find them. And that was the sad part. Of course, I won't tell anybody how it ends, because I thought that was really beautiful, but she and your poor grandmother wanted so much to.
Yeah. My grandmother had 2 husbands, and she had 1 son from the first husband, and then he was killed, and the other one was, and the bedlam that ensued in that part of the world. But the oldest son did not come with them. he wouldn't come unless they brought the whole family. Now, they couldn't afford to do that. Most immigrants couldn't. They would come, one would come and then bring his wife, and then the other one would bring a sister. They said they could bring him and his wife, but they come and help us earn some money, we'll bring the others. And that brother decides not to come. And that's a very important thing in the story.
And the interesting thing is when they came on the ship and then they had to have a place to live, and of course the other two brothers had already made a place and they had to go up, and it was so much better though than what they had. But it was
Brook Avenue, which became even after these immigrants a place for the Puerto Ricans. Brook Avenue is where people come to America first, and it's still there and it still functions.
But I was thinking about the trip over and how horrible that must have been for all the immigrants just pushed in together.
The thing is that they don't really tell you about that when you're their children. You're American now. So you as an American, we got to make the most of where we've come. And you learn it. You learn it at the kitchen table if one of them wants to talk. And it goes back here in the back of your head, and it stays there. And once in a while you meet other people and you laugh about something that happened in childhood or with adulthood. But they were, like the most of the people that I knew, they were determined to make a life in America, a good life. Their children were going to be educated. The kind of thing that they would say to you is, don't speak like the grocer, you speak like the school teacher. Their accents were, and then like the Italian barber would have a sign on the window that said, I speak Yiddish here. And that's how a lot of us grew up. They grow up that way. They're grown up. So, but then they go on to move to Brooklyn and buy a house.
Yes, and you could see how they grew, but they worked hard and they stuck together and they loved one another, even though there were some, of course, people who didn't love each other. Families. There always are those things, right?
That's real life.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
What would be good is you find a place that you would like to read something. I always like authors to read something, but I want to tell everyone you're listening to Janet S. Kleinman, Kleinman. The book's name is Goodbye Russia, Hello America. And what you can do is you actually can go onto Amazon, just hit in the name of that book. You can even put just Kleinman. Of course, you'll be able to maybe get her other book also. But it's Amazon.com. And I think it'll be a book for a day or two that you'll sit there, and once you pick it up, you won't put it down. That's what I do. A lot of times I go, and depending on what I want to review, I go into the first few pages, and if it catches me, I read a little bit more. Well, this one I couldn't put down. I think I put everything else aside and sat down and just got into it because I also have immigrant family, and it was a lovely book. So what would you like to read to us?
Okay, I have a few places that I've checked, but before you do that, I spoke at a meeting of 200 women in Boynton Beach this week, and I call this my ode to immigration. And it is, and it's an ode for all immigrants because we're all immigrants in this country. But I'm going to read to you a part where life changes unexpectedly. Lotta invited Mama Ida for dinner that evening. After tea and cookies, the family gathered around the dictionary that his mother had won, resting in the middle of the kitchen table, looking up words and practicing their spelling. The scroll Lotta had won that afternoon was tacked up on a bulletin board on a nearby wall. The red, white, and blue ribbon was attached to the corner of the scroll like an official seal. The radio was tuned to WEVD, and lively music added an aura of happiness to the room. Even Mama Ida was proud of her daughter-in-law. Abruptly, the music stopped. The radio buzzed. We interrupt this program to report that Germany has massed in troops along 3 borders of Poland. It appears that she is ready to invade that fully prepared country. Will Russia be next? The next-throated announcer said nothing more. The music returned. Stunned, the Sidewitzes sat around the kitchen table, no longer paying attention to the big dictionary. The Russian city of Brest was connected to Poland at the point where the tributaries of the Bug River separated and flowed into both countries. It must be a mistake, like Orson Welles' invasion story, Rubin said. Why didn't Yehuda warn us sooner about what was happening in Europe? Maybe we could have done something about getting his family out. They didn't know that the rescue could have what the rescue could have involved. But Mama Ida burst into tears.
Right, and how many of other families when, of course, our radio, it's funny now, I'll tell you something that I meet a lot of people, and when they want to know about my radio show, I tell them, I said, so this is when you can tune in. They said, we don't have a radio.
Really?
A lot of people today don't have radios. They have it in their car. And when I read this, I know I also come from that generation where you sat around. It was the radio. That's how we heard everything other than going to the movies once a week and seeing Pathé News or something like that. But that certainly did say a lot because they're so far away now. You know that the Europe was so far. Here you are in America with the family. Okay, well, that was very poignant. What else would you like people to hear?
Well, there was a great deal of letter writing, where possible, between the hero, who is Jack, and his American wife, Bella, who he marries before he goes abroad. But there is a letter I wanted to read to you.
Okay, well, you go ahead and look at as I talk about this. I have to just say that Janet's a mother, grandmother, and the daughter of immigrants. And she's also the author of Flirting with Disaster, When Love and Nature Collide. Well, that'll be interesting. We'll have to get that book too. She was given a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Brooklyn College Alumni Association, and she currently resides in Florida. I don't know, where do you live?
Delray Beach.
In Delray Beach. Okay, well, a lot of immigrants, families living there. So, you know, the thing that really impressed me is the way that your character built up. We all know that books can have great ideas in it. They can have great, it can be mysterious, can be a lot of things, but if you don't develop those characters, you really don't get into the book. And I knew your characters. Well,
I'll tell you about Jack, who came here as Jacob, and when he got off the boat, the name was changed to Jack. He was a very feisty guy, and he became a salesman. And you could do that in those years. And in being a salesman, he had opportunity to meet a lot of Americans, including who was to become his wife. He was handsome and so on.
Of course.
And suddenly, there's a war, and the two brothers have to be, they're not drafted first, but they're drafted. One brother is not taken because he just is over the age limit, but Jack is accepted. And when you're accepted in the Army, you get a test to see what you're good at before they assign you. And lo and behold, Jack was good with languages, and they sent him to Dartmouth to study before he would be sent overseas to work as an interpreter. Now, this is a thrill. He says in the book, Dartmouth. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing there. He says, I'm hoping that someday I can send a child to Dartmouth. But he becomes very, very good at his job. And he was the interpreter at the peace treaty between Germany and the United States in Berlin.
Now, how did you come up with that? You wanted someone to?
I wanted somebody to show that immigrants give back. They just don't take. So they had to do something, and in this case, it was the Army. His other brother that they didn't take because he was over age was very upset. He ran the business, and he ran it successfully during the war, but he was always upset that he wasn't in the United States Army.
So his brother was a token, though, of something that was very important to them.
And
okay, so
there was a lot of letter writing then.
Yeah.
And he's in Germany, is where he gets there, and a circuitous route. He's picked up by the French underground. He's taught to parachute out, and he gets to Germany, and he collects his letters from Berlin. They tell us in America, and this is what she writes to him, they tell us in America that the war in Europe is ending. Hopefully you will be coming home soon. I can hardly wait to hold you in my arms. Every street is planning a block party with balloons, favors, and swing music for dancing. A few soldiers and sailors have been discharged early, probably because they suffered critical wounds. But we are anxiously awaiting the return of all of you. I'm on the entertainment committee, and Mama Ida is on the food committee. She's baking your favorite cakes already and freezing them in the Italian restaurant that opened on the corner while you were away. Our son walks now and says Mama and Dada, but he thinks Uncle Reuben is his father. Ruby and Lotta have been so good to us, but I miss you more every day. I know that you are a brilliant linguist, but please don't learn Japanese, or they'll send you off to the Pacific. I couldn't bear your absence much longer. You are older than the boys being shipped out to Europe now, and it's time they replaced you. I need your arms around me in the big bed and another baby in my belly. I went to the post office today and found out how to send a package and photographs to you. I knitted the Argyle socks myself to keep your feet warm. As long as you're in a permanent base, you can receive mail. By the way, what happened to Vladimir? A letter arrived for you from Italy, but Reuben can't read Russian. Do you know anyone who was sent to Italy? And that's a new character that comes in, that is a young man that he found in one of the concentration camps, which he was allowed to go to for 3 days because the commander in the unit happened to be Colonel Sonnenstein. And he also, he's promised his mother that he would look for the missing brother.
Yes, and of course, it's interesting when I read that your book was not about the concentration camps. No, and so I saw that because we've read so much about the concentration camps, and so he briefly said it was terrible, and he gave an overall, but it was really more about helping this young man and also about finding his brother. Yeah, his brother. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you did skirt around that, and that was very well done. And of course, I love the way you do the baby in my belly and your arms around me. I mean, it really was a love letter that really didn't exist.
No, I made it up. I made it up. It made it up.
You're just a romantic at heart, right?
Yeah.
No, I think, but how many women thought about that, whether it was in that war, other wars, because, it's and the fact that he could even receive the letters, that was surprising too.
Well, he got them when he got to Berlin. All along, they was packaged. What they used to do is they would collect the mail, and then when they were stationed at a base, they had mail call. They would know who was there, and a truck would come in with mail. And they called, in his case, it was Corporal Seidowitz for a while until he becomes a lieutenant later on. And then they all get their mail and hide somewhere and read it.
Did you have to do any research?
Yes.
I was just going to say, because these are things that you, of course, would not have known. Where did you do the research?
First of all, I did it with people. Many of the people I know were in the Army, including my husband. Now, he was in at the time when the war was over. But this is how Army bases ran. I also belonged to a writers group, which had men who were veterans. So when I got stuck on something, I would ask at the writers group meeting, hey, what did they call coffee in the Army? And they always
What
knew.
did they call coffee? I forgot.
No,
yeah.
I didn't.
I mean, I forgot what...
No, that's not the word. I don't remember anymore. And then I used the Internet. I knew about Brest. I knew about the city. I knew that it had been a center of leathercraft and that my father and his brother had been apprenticed there before they came to America. So they had jobs waiting for them with Landsleit. Landsleit are people from the same city that you are. And they got off the boat and already they had jobs because they were known that they were skilled. And that's another thing I try to do so that if you can do something, you as an immigrant can really get a job and do well. And they did. And so from every place that I could, I wrote to Hayas, because Hayas, I call them, my mother, who, the woman he marries, the second one, was an orphan that was brought here by Hayas. And I wanted to know a little more, and Hayas was wonderful. They told me everything I wanted to know. So I went to all the places, and I enjoyed the research because it was my research. It was for me as well as a book.
And have you been back? Have you ever been there?
No.
These places? That's on your bucket list, I'll bet.
Well,
what do you think?
And it isn't. If life is good, maybe it's on my bucket list. But
there's no great yearning to see the things that you wrote?
Too many people were killed in that city. It's not what my cousin has gone and has come back very depressed. So I think we'll leave it like Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay, we'll leave it with all the wonderful romance that you did.
I made it a point to not have the book end dreadfully. And I was very careful about that because literary friends of mine were telling me at the time that agents don't want books that end sadly. This one it's a mixed blessing the way
Why
it
don't
ends.
you? Maybe we shouldn't do that so that
No, I can't tell the
let's
end.
save. Let's save that for when you buy the book. You will see a book that's a letter, Dear Uncle Jack. So we'll talk. We won't talk about that. But tell me then something. With your being so talented, you must have another book in your brain, or
I
maybe
have
in the
I'm
computer
taking
already.
a rest. I'm taking a little rest. There were 2 years between both books. A year. First of all, it takes 6 months to get a book published, or even if you self-publish it, with the editing and everything else. So I, right now, have an idea about something, but it's only a little idea. I'm not willing to share it.
Okay, but I want to go back to the book that you said that you had written, the Flirting
with Disaster.
Flirting with Disaster. Why did you write something about Haiti? What do you know about Haiti?
Oh, I didn't know anything about Haiti, except I was writing a book which was really a coming-of-age book about myself with a first boyfriend. And all of a sudden, there was an earthquake in Haiti. So I had to make this book a little more. And before the earthquake, I had been tutoring Haitian students for the Literacy Council. So and most of the help in our condo are Haitian. So I knew a lot about them as people. And then all of a sudden comes an earthquake and the whole thing goes upside down. And I decided to make that part of the book. And the first boyfriend follows out of Haiti at that point, and he tries to help by using his money to rebuild a hotel, but he wants to make it into a gambling palace, because that's what it was before. And that's where I'll leave that, because that book is, every woman who's read the book loves it.
I was going to just ask you, did it make your husband jealous?
No, my husband knew his wife. And I actually, my books have love in them, but they're not.
No sex.
Well, almost a little. A little,
Okay.
but not the kind that you would
I
read.
know. It's not like 50 Shades of Grey.
Absolutely not.
Well, listen, we say that, but
I
it could have
read
sold
it.
100 million copies. It could have been a little bit more like that, right?
No, well, he was a mean guy.
Yeah, he was. But did you see the movie? Because the movie was better. She really she put him where he was supposed to be at the end. But the Goodbye Russia, Hello America, and your cover is very, very well done. Who did your cover?
Well, the publisher did, but I did, and they did. They send you stock photographs, and you can put together what you want, and they will try to do it what you want. And I found that picture. There is one change in that picture. I made them remove the cigarette. He had a cigarette, and I had him remove it. In those years, he would have had a cigarette. But I felt in today's climate, take the cigarette away.
That's great.
So,
and the thing is, though, with the Statue of Liberty, which was so beautiful. I mean, it really was well done, because you had everything was black and white, but the gold on the lettering really made it stand out. I really, I mean, and it's not that I don't want to call you a novice, but for someone who has written one other book, and you really had not a lot of training in writing novels.
It's very different.
This is you. Yeah, I know what you said, your commercial writing. This was really great. So it's obvious you have the talent. And I really do hope that you continue with this.
I hope so, too. Right now, as I said, I was taking a break, but there's a little German there.
Yeah, the German. I see. I'm sure you have it. Your grandchildren, I mean, what about your family? When you had this all done, you couldn't wait to take the book to show them. Did they read it?
Yes, they have. All of my children read it. My son-in-law was a little critical, because he's always critical. He thought it could be better.
Did he ever write a book?
No.
See, well, then he can't be critical.
Okay.
They have no idea,
My
right?
son thought it was wonderful, and he would have been the one that I thought would be most critical, and he wasn't. And
he was probably in
very
disbelief
proud.
that you
and
put
now
something
my
else.
older one, the one in college, I have sent her personal copy.
Oh, yes.
Now, she's old enough, whether her mother let her read it or not. She has a personal copy, and my 16-year-old has a personal copy, and they're reading them.
But that's passing on the history.
Yeah.
Another thing is a lot of books that I get similar to this in the sense of talking about immigrants have a lot of pictures of the family. But you see, this couldn't be, in a sense, because it wasn't really real. This was a novel.
Real. It's a novel. All those people are made up, but they're based on people that are real. And that's how most writers do that. If it could be a neighbor, it could be someone they met in the army. I mean, it could be anywhere, but they have introduced people that they can develop, and I tried to do that, and it made some sense, I think.
No, it did.
Even the school teachers were interesting.
Oh, how so?
When she's called into school to see the school teacher, because the little boy if he's talking to a neighbor, he's talking to him in Yiddish. Now, the boy is Italian, so his mother came to complain, and because he's sitting next to someone who doesn't speak English, and they iron it all out. But he says, I only speak to him in Yiddish when I want to tell him a secret.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and then the school teacher, she says, I know about people like you. She's also been raised in a immigrant family. So if you lived in New York, every other person was raised by either an immigrant or an immigrant grandmother if their parents were American. And grandma was also very important.
It's interesting. The word ghetto today is not really what ghetto was years ago, because you can understand when people come that no one speaks the language, they don't cook the same, they don't think the same way. So, of course, being the safety in numbers.
Well, they also want to be in an area where they're comfortable. And the comfortable areas became, in this story, parts of the Bronx, then parts of Brooklyn. And after that, the children have gone all over the world.
And where were you born?
In Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. And so how long have you been down here in South Florida?
10, 11 years.
And is that where you lived all the time before this?
I lived in Riverdale all my life. My husband, I married a young man who opened an office in Riverdale, and I left Brooklyn, and I lived there until we retired.
And so this is a whole new life for you. So maybe your next book will have something to do with South Florida.
It's possible.
It is a wonderful thing to see all the people who are retired and who have come from those areas, and they have now pretty much formed another little island in a sense.
Oh, yeah, they have. But also I think what's interesting is to see the proliferation of the talents of older people.
That's true.
That's coming, and you see it in Florida.
Yes.
They become artists. They become entrepreneurs because they were bored staying home. They're writing.
Right.
And it's fascinating me to watch this progression.
Good.
And I'm glad to see it.
Thank you, Janet. It's been wonderful having this interview, and I know people will want to read your book, Goodbye Russia, Hello America. Go to Amazon.com, and hopefully I'll see you in your next book.
Well, I will send you a copy of the one that went
Thank
before.
you.
I think you should have it.
Thank you.
How's that?
Bye.
Okay, bye.